I tell you.
Dude,
What is going on?
Terrible.
For those of you just joining us, which would be everybody, we're going to talk about new X-Men, but instead somehow we're talking about mall culture and versus mall
Jubilee,
culture
baby.
in the 90s. So we're upset we can't get our orange Juliuses, and JB had to buy makeup for his daughters, and yeah, we're having a blast.
It wasn't makeup. It was all the skin conditioning and pimple patches and
even
exfoliation.
Worse, okay.
And
I like that one meme that
the water
says,
thing that I had to buy. I'm like, I'm buying water. I'm buying water. What?
JB
water?
Parenting hack.
Toner,
let your kids get pimples. Let your daughters get pimples because then you won't have grandkids.
Yeah,
it's simple.
I had that one meme that said like,
"Oh, not with that
women
pock face, you can't."
Says women spends like $200 at the beauty store, and like it shows a picture of her like all pimply. Then it says like, you know, guy uses soap on rag that he wipes his own ass with, and is like perfect skin.
We got bad news, Chris Barrett in the chat. I like how like slowly this has just gone back to our old formula. Like at first I'm like, I'm gonna edit all these episodes, and like, screw it, I'll go live. And now I'm just hitting the live button, or whether we're talking about anything or not. I love it.
Are you guys going to
got Chris Barrett hanging out? I know.
Are you guys going to SummerSlam after all?
I'm signed up to get on that ticket list.
Okay, because it's on Thursday. I think Thursday they go on sale.
Oh, geez.
Is it Thursday? Okay, great.
Yeah, they're doing like the packages are now. Actually, well, if you sign up, whatever for the packages, but they're never worth it. They're way too expensive for whatever where they are. But yeah, the individual tickets go on sale Thursday. And then for WrestleMania 41, if you guys saw, it's going to be in Vegas this coming next year.
Dangerous,
dude. We already booked our hotel.
Think we'll make it by midnight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we booked our hotel at the Venetian, and then we put our deposit down for early sign up for tickets. So we already, got half of it paid off, I think, is how it works. So,
that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll see whenever those go on sale, but SummerSlam first.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about WrestleMania as well. It's like a 1 week difference from C2E2, which I try to go to every year. So I'm just like, it might
When's
be,
the next comic
Vegas
convention?
Mania. What's that?
When's Baltimore?
Probably
in September, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's in September this year.
That's Rose City's in September too.
They moved it back from the Halloween area because, like, for like the last 5 years or so, they've been doing it around Halloween, and I think they were having a lot of trouble with the Baltimore Marathons always on the same weekend too.
Right.
So
yeah. I think that was going on when I went out there, right?
Yeah.
That was a great trip, man. That was awesome.
I wouldn't mind trying to make that too, but I'm going to Orlando in September already for Horror Nights, so I already got September booked up. That's going to be awesome.
What? You mean the allure of Charm City doesn't have the same allure of Vacation City, Orlando? I'm sure I can show you some, victims of violent crime if you'd like.
Yeah. The Yakuza karaoke bar was kind of scary, right?
Oh, Jesus. That was a Chi-Town adventure.
Speaking of violent crimes, we read New X-Men this week, where there's a lot of violent crimes to talk about here. But before we get into this, we'll go ahead and get into the show here for those few joining us who actually want to hear us talk about comics. My name's Carson, aka Seawater19. You probably guessed that because it's my channel, I guess. We'll go next. Jason, how you doing today?
Good, buddy. I was looking at some Star Wars memes, and there's, because May the 4th be with you, and May the Sith,
nice.
Return of the Sith. But yeah, little mini guys. I enjoyed it.
Oh, so
McDonough's.
I think Hayden,
yeah, little JD McDonough's for sure.
Hayden Christensen is just announced to do Rose City in September.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
He'll be heading out my way.
I think he just came to Indiana Comic-Con last month, actually.
Get him to sign my DVD of Life as a House.
What is that?
It's a movie he was in.
I've never heard of it.
Well, it's a movie about a guy who builds a house.
That sounds terrible. We got JB downstairs. OMD, Old Man Disco. How you doing today?
How you doing, everybody? Thanks for having me back on the panel. Sorry I missed last week, man. This was a good read. Actually, I enjoyed it. Wasn't so hip on the artwork, but hey, the story and where it left off, I'm pumped on this. I want to see how it ends.
Nice. We got Drew right in the basement as usual. Drew, how you doing today?
Oh man, I'm doing great. I really loved reading this. I'm gonna reach over and throw my back out. pick up the Omni that I read. So when these guys talk about this, you'll also hear me talk about the annual that was shoehorned into the first section of this Omni. I just kept reading through it, and I didn't stop. It was pretty damn good.
Nice. I can't wait to hear you talk about that annual because I didn't have it in my reread, so I'm going to let you talk about that one. But I want to get into the chair. Not only do we have our friend Chris Barrett hanging out in the chat, we got my first subscriber ever for this channel, Fish Tropic. How you doing, Fish? I always like seeing there's bumper stickers and all kinds of Fish Tropic gimmicks everywhere in the back of my stuff. So I always got to shout out Fish Tropic in the chat. So very happy to see him. Snarf will continue holding up his sticker there. So, all right. We'll go ahead and talk about some new X-Men. So I always like to kind of talk about what this book meant to me when it was coming out. So I was out of comics at the time for the most part. Like I think it was in between like high school and college. I just didn't really have a shop I was going to at the time. And eventually I had a shop next to me and I started dabbling in comics again. And I think some of the first ones I've noted recently on my channel are like the Image Comics G.I. Joe, all the Ultimate line stuff like Spider-Man and X-Men, just because there was no continuity to backtrack on. So it was really easy just to go and pick up a comic and figure out what was going on real easy. And then I kept seeing like in Barnes & Noble and the newsstands and that stuff, just random weird looking X-Men comics like this. And I'm just like, okay, like they're in weird costumes and Emma Frost is on the team now. And it just looked different than any other X-Men I'd ever saw. So I decided to pick up a few issues here when I saw them. And yeah, it definitely caught my attention. So like once I started to, run fill and backfill and all that stuff, it became one of my favorite reads over time. I'd probably cite like New X-Men is the start of like my love of comic book X-Men, basically, because I collected a little bit in the 90s with, the Onslaught stuff, but, that's probably better left in the 90s for the most part. So, like, I really like that run in the 2000s with New X-Men, leading into Astonishing X-Men, leading into the Ed Brubaker stuff with the Psi Complex, and then the X-Force stuff we just read. So, I kind of think this is like the beginning of me really liking X-Men comics and then going back and reading some of the Claremont stuff. So, Drew, I know you're a big X-Men guy. Did you collect this as it was coming out?
I did. I read this as it came out. This was kind of the response to Claremont coming back to the X-Men and it being really, really terrible. He left after the first couple issues of his run with Jim Lee. And when he came back, it wasn't the same book anymore. And he tried to do the same old thing, kind of fell flat. They gave Morrison the reins with the editorial edict that he make it more like the movies, which he didn't do at all. He just gave them the movie costumes, pretty much. But beyond that, this is like, he takes the X-Men back to being a school full of students, and those students being weird, mutants being gross, and kind of awkward. And Frank Whiteley's art really complements that, I think, in a very strange way. Kind of just makes you feel uneasy due to the, I would say squiggly. He's squiggly. A little bit of a squiggly.
It reminded me of like comics. What is it? No, Comedy Central TV show.
Dr. Katz?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Dr. Katz. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Kind of that Klasky Zupo, like the Rugrats animation.
Yeah.
It's
totally.
like, what? It's a little squiggly and it makes you feel a little itchy. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is about it, but I really like it. But I was reading this as it came out, and initially I didn't care for it, just because it was very different, and it wasn't what I had been reading. But the more I got into it, the longer the run went. I really enjoyed where it went, and I like a lot of these characters that he's introduced in this run. You got, Angel, not Warren, but the pixie-like Angel is in this book. She first appears in this run. You got Emma Frost's diamond form first appears in this run. You got Kid Omega first appears in this run. No Girl first appears in this run.
Is that Glob's first appearance
Glob
too?
Herman.
Yep.
Yeah, Glob is back there.
Yeah, you know that these characters start to populate this universe, and a lot of what I love of the X-Men over the next 2 decades from this point starts here, and going back and rereading it, I really enjoy it. I think one of the cool things that they really do with this run is they take it down to a bare minimum team again. The X-Men was always a sprawling roster. It was all over the place. When new X-Men came, it was just Cyclops and Wolverine, Jean Grey and Beast, and the Professor's there, and then Emma shows up. And that's all there is to it. Like for the first section of this book, first volume, that's it. Those are the good guys. Pretty easy team to get the dynamics between them down and really tell some stories without having to worry about all the minutia of who's banging who and what happened 30 years ago, which is all that Claremont run. I love all that continuity, but for a new reader coming in, it's just not feasible.
There's a little bit of that. I like how Gene was talking about to Cyclops about Emma Frost. He's like, "Oh, did you sleep with her?" He's like, "Oh, she kept me up all night." Classic.
You do get a lot of that Jean and Emma dynamic and that Cyclops love triangle there. In this first part of the run, the Wolverine Cyclops Jean Grey love triangles are really non-existent. You don't really get a lot of that, but that I think taking the team down to a minimal level was a really good for this book.
Yeah, for sure, because you mentioned some names earlier, first appearances and that stuff throughout. I mean, you get like Phantom X, and then my boy Beak's in there, and Kid Omega, who has had a ton of contributions to the X world at this point, and I think even Negasonic Teenage War, Negasonic, even though like she's dead her first appearance, but. And then even, we'll talk more about that next time on Modern Men, but you basically get that whole, Genosha getting blown up by a Master Mold Godzilla type Sentinel. So there's a lot of stuff that has been, and of course the first Cassandra Nova, which we're going to talk a ton about tonight. But Jason, did you read this as you're coming out? Is this your first time reading it?
Yeah, it's my first time reading it.
Nice.
But I think 7 issues. I think we did, maybe. I forget how many. But yeah.
If you got through the
silent issue was number 8.
Number 8.
Okay,
yeah. Right. Yeah.
That was awesome. That's probably one of my favorite issues, if not the
that
favorite
was
issue.
really cool.
I love how trippy it was, man. That was awesome. I want to read it again, but slower.
What about you, JB? Did you get a chance to read this prior? Or
I did not read this when it was coming out. And what I loved about how we're deciding kind of what we've been reading recently is what's coming. And if you didn't know that in this Deadpool Wolverine movie, this woman's coming, Cassandra Nova's coming. Will she come in this cartoon? Probably not. Will she make an appearance in something before that? I don't think there is anything before Deadpool Wolverine, right? That's next.
Yeah, as I say, it's pretty close. So it's like 2 months away at this point.
Is she the main bad villain? I think so. So I was really excited when we chose this to see this character, and I'll say she did not disappoint. We mentioned body count when we were talking about X-Force. 16 million. I think we've got a new record for body count. And
oh yeah,
right in a
she's
comic book.
Hitler for sure.
For sure.
I like how the cartoon's kind of doing the same stuff right now too, with Genosha getting destroyed and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was cool to have that connection.
But I will mention that we read through 8, and as of now, Magneto is still dead, right? I mean,
yep.
Well, did you read the annual?
No, there was no annual in the online version of this thing.
After you get through the 3rd issue in the Omni, they just shoehorn the annual in there, and it's
And we've got spoiler alert here. What
I was gonna ask how much you guys wanted to spoil tonight for the total read.
I'm spoiling it. Spoil it up.
Oddly formatted annual.
Okay.
Linnell Francis Yu, and He's great on the art, and the art's really great, and it's a fun story. Domino shows up. That's really cool, and we get the
Well,
introduction.
that Domino story, wasn't she in the Chinese, in the China Hong Kong? What was that? The organ, mutant organ smuggling ring.
Yes,
that
sir.
was. Oh, so that's the annual?
Did you read?
Is that story in the annual? Because I read that story. Yeah.
Did you read it digitally?
I read it digitally. Yeah.
Oh, so it went like panel to panel.
Panel to panel.
All right. You met Zorn.
Zorn. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Spoiler alert. That's Magneto.
Oh no shit!
I'm sorry. You had 30 years to catch up.
I know. All right, so that's coming. I'm gonna keep reading. I gotta see that one now.
Yeah,
that was a pretty cool story. By the way, I
Yeah.
love Domino as a character anytime, and that little back and forth she had with Wolverine, where they basically said, "Well, yeah, afterwards we'll just knock it out, just
Yeah.
just agree to agree that we're gonna go bump uglies afterwards, but we need to take care of our business first." That was cool.
Yeah. So I it's weird to me that digitally. It presents itself differently because the annual is one of those like calendar style horizontal issues.
Didn't notice it. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I read Marvel Unlimited, so it's just issue by issue. It's not like a trade,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Marvel at the time, I do remember they were coming out with these gimmicked annuals. They just wanted to try something different, I guess. So they actually the annual, when you bought it, it actually read like this, so you'd open the page like that.
Oh,
And then,
okay.
so that's why, like, if you get like the 2001 annual set for, I don't know if they just did it with the 2 X-Men books, because they did it with Uncanny as well.
Yeah.
So if there's spine ticks on it, they'll actually be like right here if you're looking at the comic, basically.
So is there only 2 staples or 3?
There's 2.
Probably 2.
Just 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one comic like that. It's from Image called Barrier. I forgot who wrote it and who the artist was, but it was
Oh,
decent.
was that the Brian K. Vaughan?
Barry's a Brian K.
Yeah.
Vaughan.
I have that.
Yeah.
Like,
I have
in
that.
there
He
somewhere.
says I have that.
It's somewhere in this room. I've read
I
it.
bought that. I enjoyed it, and then I was like, "Well, this is weird." And then it was like,
There
"Hey,
you go.
you want to buy a
That one.
slipcase for it?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I gotta buy the slipcase for it now." So they're up there on the shelf in the slipcase.
So, yeah, you guys want to get into this first couple issues with the introduction of Cassandra? Who was the Trask, the dentist? What was his name?
Oh,
Because he would have been the nephew.
nephew.
Yeah, he's Boulevard's nephew.
He's his nephew, right? He's Boulevard's Trask.
David or
nephew.
Dennis or something like that.
And he said he thought he was going to do it, that someone needed an emergency root canal on the president. What do you got me out here in the jungle for? Oh, man.
Yeah, so the first arc covers 3 issues called E for Extinction. So this is kind of like the one I mainly think about when I think Morrison and New X-Men. Because at least for the first 3 issues, and they go back and forth with the art duties a lot on this book for whatever reason. He kind of has a rotating wheel of artists. And usually his main one on this run is Frank Quitely. And I think we reviewed All-Star Superman previously on, the Comic Core version of Modern Men. And my wish for this, I like the other artists overall, I'll be honest, except for, I can't remember, Igor.
Ethan Van Sciver.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. Igor, whatever the other artist name was, Igor Cordy. I thought his art was pretty rough. But I really like the Frank Quitely art. It grew on me over time. At first, I thought it was weird, kind of like you guys did. But if I had one wish for the entire new X-Men run, is that somehow Frank Quitely could have did it start to finish, but that's 43 issues of work. Howler Mouse, what is going on, man? He clarifies that was Donald Trask III. So I couldn't remember the first name. And we got Scott Evans in the chat hanging out. What is going on, Scott Evans? And I didn't get a chance to say hi to her earlier. Christina Payne's hanging out in the chat. What is going on, Christina? So thank you guys for hanging out. But the first arc, E for Extinction, really enjoyed the first part of this arc. You kind of get to know, who Cassandra Nova is. You start just like, who in the world? Why is there this girl who looks like Charles Xavier running around in the past with Trask's nephew? And why is Master Mold there? And shit's about to hit the fan, basically. So
Well, that
Yeah, go
first
ahead,
story
JB.
she shows where the Homo sapiens come out with tools and they're about to demolish the Homo. What do they call them? I
The
can't remember what the other name
Neanderthals.
was.
Cavemen, Neanderthals.
The
Yeah.
cavemen, the Homo Neanderthal, and they're watching this, and this is like a bloodbath. Blood's everywhere, and he's like, "You don't know it went down like this," because I guess they were doing this virtually, and she took him there to explain that this is going to happen again. And the way she explains it, taking him to the very beginning and says, "This is what's going to happen. Homo sapiens are going to kill them. Guess what's going to happen next? We're going to get the mutants, the Homo superiors are going to wipe us out." And what did she say? 3 to 4 years?
3 to 4
30, 40
generations.
years?
Yeah, 3 to 4 generations. Yeah.
So she's just getting him all scared out of his mind because of what she's going to ask him to do. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I was enjoying listening to you. I didn't have anything to add.
That's how this story opens up. And this guy's
Yeah.
just a scared dentist. I think at some point, doesn't he piss himself? When
It throws up, I think.
so.
He
Yeah.
throws up.
Well, he throws up, and then they end up in Bolivia, and she explains that this master mold was funded by all the governments a long time ago and then just left, just abandoned. So the master mold, since it doesn't have anybody giving it equipment to build anything, they've evolved to just take whatever's available, and they become these grotesque looking sentinels. And it's pretty cool, man. Especially when when Wolverine rips the head off of one. If you're looking at the art real close, it's just a handgun up in there with the little, they really used whatever they could find. So they were just salvaged part sentinels that this master mold left unchecked in the whatever Bolivian jungle is going. And the whole key is that since this guy's a Trask, the master mold is looking for his voice or his DNA. I don't know what he's looking. Is it the voice? Because it was a voice command or a voice recognition.
Apparently, it can read his DNA through his voice recognition.
Through his voice.
That's new, Grant. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
But Nova is kind of giving him this story and kind of explaining that you need to do something. You need to say something. They're going to respond to you, and you can stop this. You can save the human race. We will not go extinct if you commit this genocide. And he says it like, I'm about to kill millions of people right now. And he's freaking out. And she's like, yeah, but ultimately he never does do it because she only needed to keep him talking until she could copy his DNA.
Yeah, well, him doing that for her, he did do it. He's complicit in this whole endeavor of murdering 16 million people.
Couldn't she have just used his mind the whole time? Why did she?
Right? Maybe, but I think it makes her more sinister to have him kind of toyed with and puppeteered through this first part of this book, while she explains basically to the reader, while she explains it to him, that why she's doing what she's doing, why she feels the need to eliminate mutants, which is weird because she is one. That's strange to me, and we're going to get more on that as we go through the book. But I think there's a couple of really great things that Morrison does for our heroes in the setup that's not as tied as much to the story as it is to their characters. You get Scott and Wolverine are kind of bickering back and forth as they're on an away mission, but there's not an animosity to it. There's a friendliness to it, a brotherhood to it. You're getting the kind of the juxtaposition between the two of them and their styles, but they're not put at odds with each other, which is something I kind of enjoy about this, because in most X-Men stories, you got Cyclops and Wolverine kind of at each other's throats in a way. But not here. You get them on an away mission. They're doing the fighting. That's some fun stuff. But you get Beast is built a new Cerebra.
Cat Beast.
The older sister.
And he's a cat now. And they address it, but it's strange that it kind of happens this way because he's basically just bitching that his hands don't work the way they used to. So he's not as he doesn't have the dexterity to make the helmet as comfortable as possible. So it's like there's some cool stuff in here, and you get Eugene and Beast and their little banter. You can tell that they've been friends for ages. You get the feeling that this is a family of characters that they care about each other. They're tight with each other. You get that vibe pretty much immediately. And I dig that. You don't dig really into too much in the first part of this run about the school and all the kids that are there, which is, allows you to focus here. But you get Cerebra and it's stretching its muscles and Xavier kind of using that. I really dig there's a panel in here, there's a whole page where they're kind of like having a meeting in their mind, and it's just the characters kind of sitting around a coffee table, and the background is just blue Cerebra nonsense in the background. So that's pretty cool. I dig how they kind of depicted that, and how the art carries that through. But the main crux of this first issue is Cassandra Nova, you're right, and taking over those rogue sentinels via Donald Trask III's DT3's voice command. So it is kind of weird. Why are we using his voice and not just controlling his mind? And wouldn't that be easy?
I like that the comedy in this, because there was a little comedy. The Cyclops to Wolverine, hey, can you not smoke in here? And he's like, my whole body is burnt to shit.
Yeah, he's got like the cigarette up here.
His skin is smoldering. There's a cigarette butt stuck in the side of his neck.
Yeah, there were two random panels that stuck out to me in this first arc. Number one was that where Wolverine and Cyclops just bickering about smoking, and Wolverine's like, I am literally still smoking. Like, my body is on fire. Let me have one cigarette. You won't even notice. And then the other one was, Fish Tropic put in Mind Meld in the chat. And I'm like, well, I guess Cassandra Nova's version of Mind Meld was just taking your hand and shoving it through a guy's face. And around that point, I kind of just stopped asking questions and just went with things at that point.
Yeah, I like the one panel where it says, how does it feel to have your soul puked on or something like that? I thought that was pretty cool.
And Hallermouse talks about how he brought back the psychic plane, especially in that silent issue. But go ahead, JB.
Sorry, I think the final page is the reveal of where this new master mold killing machine was sent off. It was ordered off, and you don't know where it's going, and then you find out it's going to Genosha. And the way that countdown happens through especially when you're reading it panel to panel, it says Genosha population 16 million whatever 73 and the time.
Falling.
And then the very next panel, it's population 15 million and some change. And the next panel, it's down to 10 million and some change. And it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping as they basically just melted the entire island to just dust, right? Now, the lone survivor of this was a diamond-studded woman who carries out a dead Megasonic teenage warhead. But is that the first time we see her in diamond form when she walks out of the rubble like that?
Yeah, it's the first and only issue that Negasonic Teenage Warhead ever existed in, too. So
Nice.
Like, she shows up, she dies.
She dies.
You guys were talking about the humor. The third issue here, the opening panel is just a big splash page. Says, I don't know how to tell you this, but your dating days are over, my friend. And it's Beast talking to a skeleton. And Genosha's like, "What's like what? Wait a second." The gallows humor comes quick and unrelenting.
Yeah,
it's a bit off-putting, and they do actually even mention it being off-putting as well. But yeah, so it's just man. There's nothing left in Genosha. It is completely wiped out. Completely wiped out. And it's like they don't pull any punches in this at all. It's not as graphic as the X-Men 97. If you guys have seen that, you're not seeing people being, vaporized, but you were seeing the decimation afterwards. And it's just, man, it's gone. They wiped it off the face.
It's all skeletons and dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
One survivor.
yeah, one, because she was in diamond form.
Now, Drew, do you have any recollection of before, or like what happened in X-Men before this? Because I was trying to think what happened to Magneto to the point where he was like wheelchair bound in Genosha, kind of just by himself.
That whole time period is very, very fuzzy for me because Claremont came back and started trying to do a whole lot of stuff, and none of it was really kicking. And I didn't really care for any of that era right there. So I kind of had tuned out. And this is really what got me back into X-Men.
Maybe he really wanted to be like Xavier. He's like, to be Xavier, I gotta get into the mind and break my legs like Xavier.
Question for the panel: Is
I don't
anyone
really remember? I'm honest. So
prior to this read, had anyone ever seen Xavier pull a gun?
Right. Yeah, this person he killed
I don't
somebody
think
too,
so.
right?
no,
That's
but
awesome.
he's no.
That's so
I've never
gangster.
seen him pull a gun
Scumbag.
before.
That's sick.
Right? So what happens is he's testing out the new Cerebra. He's seeing all these mutants, and he's noticing that, hey, our populations are growing. Look at these numbers; they're just growing and growing and growing. Plus, there was a spike somewhere, and that's why they sent the Wolverine and Cyclops to go investigate that spike. But at the end of his session with Cerebra, Cassandra Nova gets up in his head, and she starts fucking with him. Excuse me. And he, at the very end, pulls a gun and puts it to his head and says, "I will get out, or I'm going to pull the trigger." And she goes, "You will, won't you? you do it." And he's like, "Yeah, I would." So I didn't even realize we'll get to the part later that she was just being that close to him when he at the end there when they get her, just being in the same room as him allowed her to do what she did. Spoiler, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Well, just remember, Professor Xavier is a jerk.
He is.
Yeah, there were a couple shocking moments, actually. Like, this was one of them for sure. Just Xavier's happened to have a handgun on him that he uses later. We'll get into that. And then the other one, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but the most shocking moment for me was like when Cyclops and Wolverine kind of get captured in front of that like big giant Sentinel laser or whatever that is with that Australian guy with the three faces or whatever.
Three faces, yeah.
And then he gets blasted by that thing, but he's still alive. And Wolverine's like, "Summers, he's dying slowly." And like Cyclops just walks up to him. He's just like,
agony.
yeah, he's just like, "Everything's gonna be all right. Just look into my eyes." And he just mercy kills,
blows his head off.
Like I don't remember Cyclops mercy killing people. Like
that's true.
That was pretty shocking in my opinion.
That was a shocking kill right there.
Yeah.
I love when they land and then Sentinels are showing up. They're like, "Hey, is there anything you can do to help?" And he's like, "I got three faces and they all look like pigs."
Yeah.
Jason, what did you think of all this?
Yeah, it was cool, man. I want to shout out Beak. I felt bad for the guy because he got like the worst brunt of everything. I feel like he was getting kind of picked on or laughed at or bullied in school a bit, even though he's like the new guy too. And I guess they kind of touched on that a little bit with some of the other students and how bullying and things happening. And yeah, poor guy got like tortured and forced to beat up Beast with a bat. At first I thought he was going to go like crazy hard on Xavier. So I'm like, oh, that's perfect timing. He told they planted this earlier where he said, oh, you know, he's going to come with the platinum bat or whatever. I'm like, yes. And then I guess he got taken, you know, mind controlled and a hidden Beast. But yeah, poor guy, man. I felt bad for him. Yeah, man, it was cool, man. It was a lot. It was a good time. I keep mixing up stuff with like the newest episode 2 of X-Men 97 because I watched that like a little before I read it, so it's just kind of like meshing together. And I was like so tired trying to read like the whole entire story, this whole entire run. Not whole run, but
we'll get into the X-Men 97 discussion.
Cool.
But
that'd be great, yeah, because there's a lot of similarities, man.
Well, that's what's so great about that show is that every single thing about it is so X-Men that like you don't know where it comes from. Like, and I feel like the original animated series was the same thing. Is like every single bit of it was so deeply inspired by the Claremont run, but wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just off. And I think that they've done a really great job of continuing that in the way that they've drawn from continuity after the fact that's been presented to.
Yeah, it
the
really
X-Men
feels like it's
readers.
part of like this Morrison stuff, and also like the new Hickman kind of thing, kind of melded together,
Yep.
and it's really
Mhm.
cool. It works really
Yeah.
well.
In the second arc here, where you got the same story with Beak, you finally start getting some of that Wolverine Jean Grey romantic chemistry that starts creeping back in. You are also dealing with the Scott and Emma situation as well, and you come to realize that Cassandra Nova didn't really go anywhere when Emma snapped her neck, you know. Which another shock moment from that first run.
That was kind of a
She
shock
goes to
moment,
put the
right?
Cerebra helmet on, and Emma just grabs it and twists that fucker, and she's like, "Nope, snip snap."
Well,
You're done.
not only that, afterwards, when Wolverine says, "Well, wait a minute, doesn't she have a healing factor?" And then, boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom. Charles is sitting there just empty.
It's like double tap.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he had a gun.
to me, my X-Men.
Yeah, come on. So
Yeah.
never seen that before.
Yeah, that was gangster.
Yeah, I
he's
definitely
great.
like how they take character expectations and they just turn them on their head a lot. Like especially going into that next, maybe not in the next arc, but there's like that one in between issue that's kind of it's not in an arc, it's just in between E for Extinction and I forget what the second one's called right now, but it's kind of like the one where Beast is discovering why
Germ-free
Professor
generation.
Xavier's being so weird and
Mhm.
like he just like I'm gonna go on the news and tell everybody I'm a mutant. That
So,
seems
Will,
like a
let's talk
terrible
about this.
idea. Okay.
You're telling me, and the world didn't know that Charles Xavier was a mutant until this book right here.
Apparently not. He was just the proprietor for the school for the gifted.
Well,
Interesting.
you do realize that although these are being numbered at 114, 114 is New X-Men number 1. So think of it as a new book. So because the world might have known that he was a mutant in a storyline in the 80s doesn't mean that that's necessarily where continuity is with this kind of soft reboot.
All right.
Marvel does a great job of keeping continuity, but they do these like little soft things where like, oh, well, Spider-Man's in high school again, or, we're bringing this back a notch. You kind of gotta, there are things like that I don't remember him making a declarative, I'm a mutant, we are mutants, we're the X-Men, it's a public thing, declaration before, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I know for sure that he hadn't.
So, just so from my head, was that Cassandra that announced that he was a mutant then? Because
Pretty much,
she had
yeah.
taken
I
over
think
him
she was
at that point.
fully in. Yeah, that's why he was so
She was
erratic.
in there, but I'm not sure if she was in full control.
Okay.
I
And
kind of
then-
feel like she had to have been because like his behavior is so erratic at that point because he goes on the news, announces he's a mutant, and then
says, "I'm leaving.
immediately contacts Salandra and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm going on vacation. You guys
I'm going
deal
on
with
vacation.
Fallout.
Peace
Bye."
out. So now we focus on the school, right? We get really in depth on the school.
Yeah.
People are picketing and like graffitiing the school. They wouldn't let that shit happen. Come on, man. You ain't gonna graffiti the damn school. But they're graffitiing the school, they're picketing, and Jean is basically left at the school by herself at this point, right? Because everyone else is off investigate because there's, like you said, the team is not that big. So once Charles is gone on the ship, which I thought was one of the coolest scenes, some of the best art was that ship over the top of the mansion, that was a really cool art scene right there. And then just Charles bounces. Who else is leaving?
Well, you
Cyclops
got
and
Beast
Wolverine
was
are gone.
incapacitated by Cassandra
Beast is incapacitated
via Beak, and him
So all
and
you
her
have
messing
is-
with the mind. And
is,
one thing
Jean
we
and the
didn't-
kids.
Yeah, and another thing we really haven't
cuckoos.
touched on yet, the cuckoos, is I think Jean, I can't remember who she's talking to, but basically she said there's like a mutant flu going around that even Wolverine's affected by it. And I guess kind of spoilers, you find out here in a couple story arcs that Cassandra Nova has affected them with nano sentinels. So she has actually made them all sick, basically, so they're weaker. So when she's going to make her next move, like, Jean's not feeling great. You know, when Wolverine is sick, there's something bad going on. And they've even said, like, Wolverine's even feeling it. And, of course, Beast, he's completely incapacitated at the point where Professor X has got it. And then Emma and Scott are off to figure out what's going on with these. I think they're the human.
U-men. Yeah, which is, this is crazy. So basically you have a group of people who think that we've got Homo sapiens, we've got the mutants who are Homo superiors, and now we have this new group of people that said, hey, if we use surgery to graft mutant parts onto ourselves and then encase ourselves into metal suits and not breathe the air, what the fuck is that? Don't breathe the air. And that they're going to be the next level. And I don't remember what they called them, Homo superior. I'm not sure. And
basically they chop up mutants and
they created a group called the U-Men. Now, I think that storyline in China was they're harvesting organs from mutants because the person who wants to take this next level needs to have some mutant organ and, surgically implanted on them. And these people out of their minds. So now you've got, we're going to go. Oh, they were fanatical reading a book by Sublime. So that's what it was. They went to go interview the Sublime guy. That's why they weren't at the school. So you got two people interviewing the Sublime guy who ends up taking them. We'll get to that. And Jean's by herself. And the Sublime guy's like, hey, man, is that school full of mutants? Didn't he just announce that school's full of mutants? Aren't we harvesting mutants? Mutant organs? Let's go get it. Ain't nobody there. And they send a dispatch to go take over the school, very reminiscent of, the movie scene, but a little bit different because it's only Jean. They think that's easy. They literally say, the place is unguarded. There's only this Jean lady and a bunch of kids. But the kids, they got powers too.
Yeah, if you're going to leave one person on their own, it may as well be Jean Grey. Go ahead,
we skipped over the part where the protesters were really messing up with the school and stuff, and then Emma Frost made them all have an orgasm and passed out.
That's right. They confront the group of protesters, and Emma implants into all of their minds that they're going to have orgasms. They're all falling on the ground, orgasms all over themselves.
I like how it's like You got Jean trying to be like Professor Xavier's like, I'm just going to go talk to him and try to do the right thing. And then Emma's like, oh, bugger this. There you go. Enjoy your moment of bliss. Bye. Get out of my lawn.
Emma doesn't have time to put on pants. She certainly doesn't have time for protesters.
Yeah.
I want to get into the chat real quick here. We got Howler Mouse talking about that 2001 nanotech was cutting edge. LOL for sure. We got Double S Collects. What is going on? I know he's a big fan of his Uncle Drew. And then from the Twitch side of things, I wanted to shout this out. We have Can You Burp on Command saying, hey, gents. And no, I can't. There you go. There's a couple for you.
There you go.
Thanks for watching on the Twitch side of things.
All right, where were we? So, sorry.
I think we're on Emma and Jean trying to do their different
Wolverine's
things.
In Wyoming. Why was Wolverine
meanwhile,
in Wyoming?
Trying to get this new version of Angel, basically. Just happens to, her name just happens to be Angel. And, it's kind of like he was trying to do for the Australian guy with 3 names to kind of bail him out of his
Ugly John
attack he was getting on.
His name was Steve, but everybody called him Ugly John.
That's right. So the human were after Angel, so luckily they caught that using Cerebra. Jean did, so they sent Wolverine because he was an hour away. So you kind of get to see, Wolverine always ends up being the babysitter somehow.
Yeah,
rather have been with like Kitty Pryde or Jubilee or like in X2 where he has to save the kids in the mansion and stuff. Like this time he ends up having to like find this Angel and save her, and she just hates everybody and everything, which she has a good right to, because
her powers literally just developed on her that day. Like she went from a cocoon to I got wings to these people are trying to dissect my wings to wait a minute, I'm spitting acid. Wait, you know, what's going on? I just want to be normal. So she's freaking out. She doesn't believe that Wolverine's there to help her. Even when the interactions of them eating in the diner, you know, it was fun banter back and forth, I guess. Kind of reminded me of a little bit of that Wolverine movie with X-23 a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that accounts for most of the team right then. Of course, Beast is out. You don't see him until the very end of the second arc again, you know, because he got beat down with that baseball bat, and not only that, like his mind got tore up by Cassandra Nova, basically. But once Jean and Emma solve the problems at the gates, they go back in, and basically Beast is there carrying what they think is Cassandra Nova's body, but they just did the old mind swap, and Professor X's mind is in there. He's like, we have to help the professor, or something like that. So that's when, you know, like, and that's when you get the crazy, trippy silent issue, which it sounds like most of you guys got a chance to check out. So, Jason, what did you think of the silent issue?
Dude, I think that might have been my favorite. Like, I kind of breezed through it because I was like, all right, well, let me get to the next chapter to see how long it is or whatever. And then I was like, oh, I need to go back and read that like slower and really enjoy it. It was so fun. It was so trippy.
It's not actually a silent issue, which is like a misnomer.
Well,
because at the end of it, there's a line of dialogue.
That panel.
Yeah, that one's the one I always think of when I think of this whole storyline.
That panel, and then it's not silent because
and it's so amazing. It's just like the storytelling panel to panel is just really great. Quietly does a fantastic job.
I don't know if you can read that, but she comes out of there and she says, Professor X tried to kill his twin sister while they were both still in the womb. We ought to talk.
Now, the funny thing is, I was telling you guys earlier how I was kind of collecting this out of order because I was trying to, you know, back collect it. The silent issue is actually the very first issue of this run I had read. So I'm just like,
whoa,
what in the world is going on? I need to know more.
That's amazing.
Wow, yeah, that would be a crazy one to start with.
But I do remember at the time as well, when I went to go, you know, I saw this on the shelves. There were a bunch of these Enough Saids. It was kind of a gimmick Marvel was doing where I guess they were challenging their storytellers to.
That's.
Yeah, let me zoom in on Drew here real quick.
That panel right there.
Yeah.
My arms get
awesome.
Holding up this Omni.
Just keep holding it. More still. It's like, meanwhile, Jason has his phone. Alarmess says the silent issue reminded him of the Venture Brothers plot years before the Venture Brothers even existed.
This one panel reminds me of The Head, MTV The Head.
Right?
Liquid Television.
Yeah.
Man. We should review Liquid Television.
I think I forgot what else it was called. Wasn't it called something? There was another name for Liquid Television. Oddities. It was called MTV Oddities. Apparently, is like
MTV's
The Head,
Oddities.
and I think the Max, and I think Liquid Television might have been Aeon Flux and something else. I don't know.
Aeon Flux. Oh yeah.
Man, what a disappointing movie. Did you see that?
Yeah, I ain't kidding.
Man. That Aeon Flux also had that kind of style of art that made you go, oh, that's a little squiggly. That's a little, you know.
It's a little squiggly.
Makes me feel.
Gary
we're gonna have to keep reading. We've gotten to 8, and it's still unresolved. Cassandra is in Charles in space, getting down and dirty with, you know, Lilandra. Those Sentinels were never caught. The ones that blew up Genosha, right? They're gone. Where are those guys at?
Zorn? What's going on with Zorn?
Yeah, what's going on with Zorn? Zorn.
And we got Mark.
But wait a minute, we forgot to mention that in his death, Magneto is famous. He's on T-shirts and lunchboxes.
Yeah, they point out the lunchboxes. Yeah. Well, eventually, I think, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, when you first meet Quentin Quire in his first appearance, he's just wearing a big old shirt that says Magneto was right.
Yeah, no.
If I remember correctly.
Yes. Magneto was right. It's become very popular to say now since the X-Men 97 show has come out. But I've been saying it for decades. Magneto was right.
Saying it for decades.
He's been right all along. Those filthy humans will never stop. They'll never stop. They'll sell their souls to robots to kill mutants, bro. It's sad. What?
But this is kind of where I stopped my current read. I don't know if you guys read further than the silent
No, I
issue.
stopped right there.
Double S knows a lot about his cousin.
But I have the next couple days off, so I'm definitely gonna keep reading this run. I don't know about
Yeah,
you
I
guys.
got to see what happens next.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna finish the
Because I think it's like 43 total issues, if I remember right. It gets really good. Like, it's already really good, in my opinion. But I think like the best of it was around like Rioted Xavier's was really good. That's another arc coming up, and then eventually, whenever you talked about Phantom X, you get to meet Phantom X in this run.
That was like,
And then,
Phantom
explain that to me. How this works? So they built the facility around him.
The world.
What was that guy's name?
Zorn.
Zorn. No, that's Zorn. Zorn. They built the facility around him when he escaped once in what year was it? I can't remember what year it was. Let me find that
So
out.
a lot of this gets retconned, JB, but there is a real Zorn.
okay.
And there's also another Zorn who's Zorn's brother. But there's also a fake Zorn who's Magneto.
And who's the one that joins that Scott gets to join the
Zorn
team
isn't
at the
really
end?
Zorn.
Zorn is not really Zorn, but Zorn is Zorn. And Zorn's brother Zorn is also Zorn.
Stop with the
I am not lying. Like, Google it. Google
I just
Zorn
put him in
and
the
see
thumbnail for fun. I just like the cover where he's staring at a cheeseburger.
He's amazing. Zorn has a star where his head should be.
where his head should be.
Yeah, where his
Yeah.
brain should be is a neutron star.
Okay.
I think I
And he was
counted
about to
correctly,
have a black hole moment and then was walked back from the edge of
Yeah, well, he really
engulfing
couldn't do that.
all
because
life.
His name is actually Magneto.
right. All right.
I think there's 33
blowing
issues
up, that was
left, I
the
believe, in the run.
Yeah.
I don't think that they really had any idea what they were doing with Zorn when they brought him in.
all right.
Wasn't there Son of Zorn? There should be.
But there's I think Assault on Weapon Plus was really good because it just kind of takes a break and it's just a trio of Cyclops, Wolverine, and Phantom X going after another Weapon X type project. And then meanwhile, like the mansion's just screwed because of the whole Zorn reveal. So by the time they get back, I think it's pretty much just like, if I remember, I think it's Jean versus Magneto. And then the whole, like, remember, you start with 5 Stepford Cuckoos. We don't end up with 5 Stepford Cuckoos by the end of this.
Yeah.
So just to see that whole arc with them too.
Slowly been peeling them off since their introduction. I think there's only 3 now.
Yeah. There's one named Esme who messes a lot of things up. Well, if you keep reading, you'll know. But I guess we can go ahead and start.
Before we get the scores, we did get a lot of different art in this book.
We did.
Namely, if you read the annual as well, there are 4 artists. You got Igor Koroi, and you got Ethan Van Sciver, who back up Frank Quitely, and then you have Linnell Francis Yu, who does the annual. So, what
who
did you
is
guys?
this?
What did you guys think about the art? How did you feel
Who
about
is that one?
The consistency of
Is that
it?
from the annual?
That is Igor, I believe.
That's
Yeah, I think
Igor?
that's Igor Cordy.
Okay.
And you get more artists later down the line too. Eventually, you get, I think Chris Bachlo joins in or around Assault on Weapon Plus, and then like Mark Silvestri ends the arc. Like Grant Morrison's run is the final one's Mark Silvestri, which at least the art's good. Like I kind of just and then Phil Jimenez, he did the final arc with
Jimenez
Magneto on here.
Does a lot of stuff in there as well.
Yeah, so I feel like that was a trend with Marvel in the 2000s because we touched upon that in the X-Force video we did, how we went from Clayton Crane's art to Mike Choi's art, and they were like almost night and day. They were both decent or great art, but they didn't mesh together in one book, in my opinion. I think we talked about that previously. And then here, like Frank Quitely and then any other artist is just, they're very different from each other, in my opinion. Like Quitely is like that almost like, I don't know what, I think Mike Allred was doing X-Force at this time over on the X-Force side of things. I'd be like, somebody falling off like the Allreds. It would feel so different. So I like the art, but I like I said, I wish Quietly could have just did the whole thing.
I agree. I think that like the Van Sciver stuff is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. Some of his panels are, you get kind of wonkiness and in figures, but I think that's fair enough because he's working off these Quietly designs, which are just very kind of out there. Mm-hmm. And I think that he did a really good job kind of making the book have the same feel while absolutely not having the same look at all. Whereas I get your complaints about the Igor art as well, because he also has this like stylized take that just is another step further away from what Quietly was doing, which I found to be a little bit distracting. But I do like those issues though, because the introduction of Martha, who becomes No Girl eventually, is
Martha,
really cool.
The brain in the tube,
brain with a bunch of different dots sticking out of it. And she's a cool character who eventually gets her chance to shine, and really has a nice role in like.
Well, she already. I don't know if she actually did. Maybe Emma just lied, but she said Martha said to let him go, so she let him go.
Yeah, Martha let him go. Martha's a good egg. She's a good egg. She doesn't have any arms or legs or skull or face, but she's a good egg, So I like that. But I think that the art was really all over the place in a way that I didn't remember there being such a departure from the Quietly art. When you initially think of this run, you just think of the Quietly art, to be honest, and it is kind of distracting.
And I'd say like the biggest detriment was just the fact that like Quietly got to design the new version of Beast for this run, and not only this run, like all of X-Men. So if you read any other X-Men books featuring Beast in like the following decade, basically, like a lot of other artists have a lot of trouble drawing Beast because they just it was so new at the time. I guess they didn't have a chance to check this out before drawing him, so he just looks completely different.
Really nailed it.
Yeah, exactly. Like when Cassaday does anything, he obviously nailed, whatever he touched. So, but then they end up redesigning him again when they do like the all new X-Men stuff to make it, I feel like, a little easier for other artists to manage. But yeah, I feel like some of the Quietly designs didn't quite translate to the other artists, if that makes sense.
There's a really cool manifesto that Morrison, before we get the final scores, put in the back of I guess it's kind of his pitch for the first arc and the relaunch. And I just want to read a couple of little excerpts here for you guys. He says, having read through every X-Men trade paperback available to humanity, I think I have a pretty clear idea of what works in this book and what doesn't. Here's what I think would be the most effective strategy for keeping old readers, and more importantly, for attracting new contemporary ones, which he's very, very hyped on. And there's a couple things he says on here. He's like, the way that Claremont and Byrne did it in the 80s and Jim Lee in the 90s, we need to make the book look cool again. The movie has already done most of the work for us there. There are millions of new potential readers out there for the taking, including all the women who slobbered all over Hugh Jackman and should be able to pick up this book and get the same sexy thrills from this comic book character. So no more blue and yellow spandex and Batman helmet. Why does Wolverine wear a helmet in the same shape as his hair anyway? It just looks fucking stupid. We have to stop talking into the shrinking fan audience and re-engage the attention of the mainstream. Longtime fans will read the book and bitch about it no matter what. We don't need to attract them. We need to make the book accessible to the real world audience. We need to get X-Men and Marvel Comics in the news again, in the cool magazines and on TV. We need to recapture the college and hipster audience because that audience is bigger than ever thanks to the movies and the games, and thanks to things like Buffy and The Matrix. The entire mainstream is pumped and primed to consume superhero stories. So I think that he really did that, and that's something that he really pushed forward, is they needed to kind of leave some of the old superhero-y stuff behind and embrace what the mainstream was seeing. And I think they found a way to make X-Men weird and an homage to what it originally had been, while at the same time updating it and giving it new legs for new readers. And it was definitely successful. Some of the script notes that he passes through went nowhere, and he did different things with them. But like, basically, you get the whole layout of Ether Extension and germ-free generation in here as well. Some really great quietly designs, which is pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Cool sketches there. And there's some script work in here too, which is really fun to look at, as well as a million different pinups, which I'm not going to show you all of them. Go spend $130 and pick up this Omni yourself, because it's definitely worth it.
All right, I guess we can go ahead and move on to final thoughts and scores. Jason, you want to go ahead and go?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I should probably give it like a 9.4, 9.6, but I'm probably going to give it like a 9.2. I'm not really docking it for anything like too. It's more like nitpicky stuff. Like the art is suitable, it's fine, it's good, it's in its own way, but it's not for me. It's not what I like. But whatever. That's just my opinion on that. I'd rather look at different art than what happened here. But it was an interesting take, and good job in creativity and doing something different. I can't stand Cat Beast. I think the design sucks. It's ugly. It's stupid. I think it's really funny and weird how, I mean, at least they talked about it. It's like, oh, we went from human to ape to cat. And I'm like, okay, I guess he's gonna keep devolving or something like that is what they're kind of referring to. And I was like, well, does that mean he has like a barbed dick now? What's going on with Cat Beast?
It.
That's why the girl didn't want to date him, because it was like bestiality, right? Is that what they were going on? The protest.
That's what she said.
Yeah, it's brutal. Jesus. But I don't know, Morrison's fun. He's a great writer, and had a good time with that stuff. And he, had interesting topics. It was really engaging. So yeah, high scores all around, pretty much. So yeah, I'm just gonna give it a 9.2. I would have put like, I don't know. I can't even say what artist I would like on there right now, because I'm so tired. But but I, if I was Grant Morrison, I'd be like, all right, let me get this artist and not Quietly. But I don't know. It was cool, man. And I would like to read more of this. I don't know if I have the time to, but yeah, 33 more issues, I think, is what I said. But it would be a good, time well spent, I think, to finish reading the story.
154.
Yeah, you can stop a reading as soon as he is done, too, because I think Chuck Austin takes over, and no.
According to Marvel Unlimited, goes to 156.
The Draco?
What's that?
Yeah, no, he did. I think that was
right?
an Uncanny, but yeah, he also did that storyline. Yeah, Uncanny really wasn't worth reading too much while this was going on. I mean, I don't know why they. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Basically, if you want to follow up new X-Men with a read, just go read Astonishing, like from John Cassaday, Joss Whedon. But JB, go ahead with your final thoughts and score.
Well, I do want to agree with Jason with regards to the art. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't really my stuff. There were some really great images throughout the read, but as far as the story, I was shocked a couple of times. I enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed the actual read of this, because how it's developed. I'm going to, as soon as this is over, continue reading, because I got to find out what happens with Cassandra, and now I got to assign one with Magneto. As far as the story goes, I'm going to grade this with the new scale, because now you can get 9 9s pretty easy now, right? We're going to go 9.6 on the scale for this one. The story arcs, the 3 story arcs were fantastic. And I enjoyed the Domino, that story too, man. I love her. She's awesome.
I got to read that. Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Drew?
Man, I love this run. I like what Morrison does with the X-Men, and when I reread this, it's unfortunately not as good as I remember it being. There's just a lot of stuff that isn't what I remember of it, and what I remember of it is the Morrison story arc with the Quietly art, and the filler issues in between that. There's some good stuff in there, but again, the lack of consistency does kind of make it, we did read more than a trade's worth. But the lack of consistency in the way I read it with the annual kind of shoved in the middle in the Omni hurt my experience a little bit, I'll be honest. So I'm thinking around 9.4. This is still seminal work from Morrison. I think that he laid the groundwork for a lot of things in the X-Men mythos that continue to this day. A lot of characters he developed have become mainstays of the franchise. And, when you're talking about, comics, it's hard to create new characters that have a lasting legacy and impression. That's just something that's hard to do. And with an X-Men, it's kind of a cheat code because you can just, roll them into teams and put them in the background and have them say, funny one-liners here and there. But, like, to create all these characters that have inspired artists and writers to sprinkle them in as seasoning throughout the years is kind of impressive. But overall, I feel like this first chunk of the run, I remember the E for Extinction stuff, I remember the germ-free generation stuff, and everything else just kind of forgettable. So in that vein, I think 9.4 is a fair place to put it. Yeah, one of my favorite X-Men reads is E for Extinction. It kind of falls off after that point and doesn't pick up again until you get to the Riot of Xavier's. So this is a great run. It's worth picking up, worth checking out. If you have the cash to splurge on the Omni is a great presentation for it as well. So I definitely suggest it.
Yeah, I kind of want to go, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a 9.6 just because rereading this, it did bring back a lot of memories from when I was first starting to get back into comics and that stuff. And just where the X-Men were at the time, I mean, this was from 2001, if I remember right. So the movie, the original X-Men #1 just came out. So they put them back in the costumes. And I just remember reading in Wizard magazine, like, how people were kind of had mixed emotions on them taking the going to this basically from their superhero stuff, and they acknowledged that in this first issue actually. So that brought back a lot of memories of just where the comic book realm was at. So I like that. I took a little bit off for the art, of course, just because, like I've said a couple times in this video, I wish Quietly would have just did the whole thing all-star Superman, but obviously 43 issues is a lot more than the 12 issues they did for that. And yeah, there's a lot of great stuff to come too. Like I don't think we mentioned like Murder at the Mansion, where Bishop has to go investigate, who shot. Now, I don't want to spoil too much for JB because he's getting ready to read a bunch of it, but there's a whole like murder investigation coming up. And the fact that you mentioned they start with a smaller team, and Morrison does an excellent job of like adding new characters and building to this really big team. Eventually, one of these covers has like a big group photo on it of all the characters they just added during this run. And a lot of them still have lasting impact. Like they still use, Kid Omega all the time. Phantom X is a fan favorite. And, obviously Emma Frost may as well have been from this run
Glob
too.
Herman.
Yeah, Glob Herman. Like, I don't really remember too much stuff Emma did prior to this run. So as far as I'm concerned, this is where Emma Frost was introduced as she is now too.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of great contributions to the X-Men universe that Grant Morrison brought through this run. So I got to give it a pretty high score. Now, there is a question that popped up in the chat. I do want to go over the chat a little bit because there's a few things that have popped up. I want to acknowledge Howler Mouse as he's like, oh, geez, I remembered a weird scene between Cyclops and Wolverine using urinals drawn by Bacalo. So that's in that Assault on Weapon Plus, I believe. Scott Evans brought back the horror story that was Cassidy doing that weird Wolverine Beast X-Force variant from about 6 months ago. That thing was terrible. Double S is talking about this commission of Baxter Stockman had done at C2E2. I'm sorry, buddy. It's already hanging on the wall. It's not going anywhere. Scott Evans gives us his thoughts. He says, I like this. Art was weird, but story's good. I'm in for 9.2 based on strange art and weird Cat Beast. But yeah, people are kind of lukewarm on Cat Beast from time to time. I'm okay with it. But like I said, I think it deters other artists who aren't Frank Quietly, basically. Double S had a question for the panel. He says, what do you guys think of Cassandra's character in the Deadpool Wolverine? Now, obviously, we haven't seen the Deadpool Wolverine movie, but based on the trailer, what are your guys' thoughts on Cassandra in that so far?
She's a little too sexy. Definitely not sexy in this book.
No, not sexy in this book. Yeah, good point.
No. It's like someone just showed like a meme online. It was like Madam Web, new Aunt May, and then Cassandra Nova. Just like, see where the casting directors are coming from. And then Double S says, for JB State Cars, just say who shot Mr. Burns, LOL. So, Maggie Simpson, it's always her fault. Later, Chris. Thanks for joining us tonight. Now, before we get into the final stuff, I always like to ask at the end of these, from while we're live at least, like, what are you guys collecting? I mean, is there anything you want to show off before we sign off here? Anything you want to talk about? Anything fun you've been reading? Drew, you were showing a bunch of stuff earlier.
I've been just picking up these AEW figures, like they're going out of style. The show has become unwatchable, but the figures are still great. This Ring of Honor CM Punk Luminaries figure, he's pretty awesome. I had this badass Brody King. Picked up this.
I have been out and about looking for things that were published in the month and year of my birth.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you're doing that birthday list.
Yeah, and I recently finally found the National Geographic.
Oh, wow.
Looks just like you.
But yeah, right. But I've been collecting, the comics.
Okay. Journey into Mystery #1. Wow.
From, the year, the month and year. I don't know if anybody else does that.
I'll have to look at is there a listing, like a database online where you can just type in your information?
A place you look them up and they list them all.
I'll definitely have to do that. See what I have. It's a fun little project, I suppose. There's some good books there. I guess if other people are trying, I guess I sort of feel sorry for people who were born in the mid-90s. I bet they got some awful birthday books.
But I love Marvel frame books, so
Oh yeah, no, those are all great. Those are beautiful.
Marvel frames. I've been collecting those. So yeah, that's the latest thing I've been trying to stick with is the Marvel frame.
Still finishing my Captain Marvel run.
Oh, okay. Let me highlight those.
LCS.
Some Starlin.
On Free Comic Book Day. This is a little chewed up at the top there, but still is a deep discount. Quality book. Yeah, and then they had, you get your free comics. I got, just a couple of the freebies. Got the Energon Universe.
Yeah, I did read the Energon Universe.
Bloodhunt, the Star Wars, and I got the what's it called, the Spider-Man as well. I don't know where the hell I put that at, but they also had pick out of their dollar bin. You could pick 20 free comics. They had basically the entire run of the Peter David Captain Marvel with Gina
Holy
Spell.
moly!
And I was like, yeah, so these were all freebies? That was pretty dope.
What?
That's awesome.
And they're all in good shape, too. I was like super hyped about it. And they had the boxes outside underneath the awning, and then the free comics were on a table next to it. And we were lined up outside, got there a little early, and I was kind of like just flipping through the comics to give myself not really a leg up on them. I mean, there's only like, 10, 15 people there, and but I was just like giving myself something to do while we wait in line. And one of the clerks from the store, she came over and she's like, "Can you not, look through those until we're open?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And then the other guy,
they're outside.
Dude, I've known him forever. He's the general manager of the store. Comes over and he's like, "You find anything good in there so far?" And I was like, "I was told not to look." He's like, "You can look." And I was like, "Well, I found all these Gina Spell Captain Marvels." And he's like, "Oh man, you think anybody else is clamoring for those?" And I was like, "No, I'm pretty sure I'm the only guy clamoring for Gina Spell books." So I ended up getting a whole bunch of those. We had a good time. So that was they were worth picking up. But yeah, I'm still picking up a lot of that 70s stuff,
Love the 70s Bronze Age, baby.
70s cosmic
Bronze
stuff,
is fun.
tertiary characters. Like I like, if you were like a woman superhero was having trouble selling books in the 70s, like I don't know, Spider-Woman, I'm collecting your run. It's like it's just kind of like that. That's
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk. Those books are amazing, bro. Those amazing books. And to be honest though, the best stuff is the 80s and 90s, and the She-Hulk. The Sensational is way better than the Savage run. But yeah, you get a whole lot whole lot of awesome going on there.
What are you collecting, Carson? What's the latest and greatest?
Well, I did my C2E2 haul stuff, so I just wanted an excuse to show the book again. I got an Arthur Adams in my book.
Wow.
Sick, dude. That's so nice.
That's awesome.
I did have to show this one more time. This is probably one like the coolest thing I've gotten for. I mean, I got a whole bunch of cool commissions. You can check out my video, but like this was like the ultimate goal for the show.
Not a boob window in that bust?
I never even got a chance to talk to him. Luckily, he was so busy this con. Like the one time I heard like, I think he's just like trying to get through like 2 pages of commissions.
Oh my goodness! Like, so how was the strategy there? Was that you get there first day and get it in?
Pretty much, yeah. This counted as a remark.
Wow.
Like,
That's a remark.
Yeah, this is what he counted as a remark.
Day, man.
Wow.
I would do that all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
So that's why I'm like, I'll take a remark in my sketchbook. Yeah, that's what you can't go wrong with the sketchbook, man.
Smaller book.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The only
So
thing
yeah,
is when you
sometimes I'll
do
start
that,
flipping through it.
then you end up tying it up for the whole day, for the whole con because
right. So this was my tie-up.
Get it back to the last day.
Art Adams remark that looks like a full sketch.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it takes up the whole. It's a 9x12 sketch, but he referred to it as a remark. I mean, I guess if he did like a little that big, I couldn't have been mad at it because that's what was advertised. But luckily I did a little research online and looked at some Facebook sketch groups, and I saw like
be a lot easier for him to draw that entire page than it would be for him to try to make it tiny.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead
so
of making it harder on himself, to give you a little bit extra.
Like he had 2 remark tiers, and that was the lower tier. I don't know what the other one, like what the difference would have been, because I didn't see too many examples of people posting their C2E2 sketches online. I saw one other one that was the upper one, and I'm like, that looks 2% better than mine. So I would have rather just had 2 of what I got, you know what? But that was probably, I got a whole bunch of half price. I got stacks on. I mean, I guess I could just pick up a stack and start showing things if I wanted to. Like,
do you think he got flustered and like made it big by accident? He's like, oh, fuck it.
I don't know. He's just like, whatever, I need to do a sketch.
Yeah, dude, I that's what I bought recently was that C2E2.
Oh yeah, you said you bought this as well, yeah.
Yeah, I bought that one and the other 2 C2E2 ones. Yeah, I bought it online though.
Those are Bird City Comics exclusives.
Yep. There's the QR code to Bird City.
Now I got a question. When you told her Tim sent you, or hey, Lord of the Long Box offer a discount, did she laugh at you, or did you like get the?
I should have asked for the Lord's discount. I forgot. I was just trying to get to the next line. I was just like, I need this, the other. And like, I think I was the first person there at the booth. Like somehow I was shocked that there wasn't like a big line around the Bird City booth to get these, because I know they sold out in minutes on their pre-sale. And I just remember other fiascos specifically having to do with C2E2 getting those exclusive variants. I'm like, my brother asked for the Frizen one, so I'm like, I'm just gonna go there first on my way to the Tiny Onion booth, because that was like the other. What's that?
Did you get the Frizen?
I did. I got 2 copies of the Frizen. I got one for myself and one for my brother. It's just on my table downstairs still.
Yeah,
so.
I got the Frizen one. I ordered the Frizen one, but I got them from Big Time Collectibles. I think it's called BTC.
Oh, okay.
Big Time.
I got some Frank Miller Daredevil. I don't know why they're still posted on these books. I just, I might have showed these. I forget, but just when I can get stuff for like $3 to $5 from. Silver and early bronze. Like I just am a sucker to get it every time.
Me too.
Even if it's like
so
low
hard
grade
to
like
pass
this.
up 10 and 12 cent, 20 cent.
Even like
for $5 or less, you're like, come on.
Upgrading my Frank Miller Daredevil run, like if I can do that for like $4 or $5 a book on these, like I'll do that every time. So, and they haven't listed lower grades, but I'm just like, I don't think that's right. So I'm happy with these copies. So I got a whole bunch of Daredevil duplicates now that I need to figure out which ones are my best ones. And then I'm always just getting the horror comics and stuff. So anytime I see them like on a Whatnot stream for cheap or whatever, I just end up getting them if they're the right price. Like especially like Simon and Kirby art, cool. Like why not? And I found after years upon years and hunting, I finally found a copy of ROM #1 that wasn't stupid overpriced. It was like $3.
When year did that come out?
Well, it's a 40 center. It's probably like what, like 80 something or like 79. Yeah. So, 79. They wrote it on the back of the book. Cool. So yeah, I finally found one So that wasn't like $10. I only wanted that book for like $3 or $4. Let's be honest. And then just throw a Mike Grill.
Nothing's ever going to come of ROM. There's too many hands in that pie for them to make a financially beneficial decision for everyone. Ooh.
Yep. Cameo Legion, some New Mutants with Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, it's Sienkiewicz.
Yep. I don't know, I bought an Atari Force or something.
Atari Force.
I could just do this all day. There's books everywhere in here. There's like Black Panther #1. No one wanted to bid like more than $3 on. So I'm like, I guess I'll take this book for $3. And this might have been a free. No, this one was signed by somebody. I think Carlos Pacheco signed this, so I bought it.
Oh, nice!
So
wow,
that was a cool. It's like they didn't even know it was signed until I bid on it and I bought it. So I just saw it was a signature down there. So I'm like, I like signatures. I will buy that for cover price. So yeah, just a small sampling of what's all over here.
What
I
we
could
read
do that
next,
all night.
guys?
But
what's next?
we're gonna do the X-Men '97 special. Should be next up. So I figured we do Modern Men about every 2 weeks. There's only 2 episodes of X-Men '97 left, so by the time we decide to air Modern Men again, it should be fully out and for everybody to watch, including ourselves. So
nice.
I figured the next time we meet up, we'll just skip a read, and then because I just want to talk about that cartoon. Like I don't know about you guys, but every time I watch it, I want to talk about it. I've been wanting to save up all of my YouTube conversation with you guys and just do one big X-Men '97 episode.
Hell yeah!
So I think that's what we're gonna do next.
Cool.
And after that, if anyone has any suggestions, that's kind of I guess if Jason or JB, if you want to throw any wild card ideas out there for reads after that, we can go for it.
I want to continue to kind of read things that we're going to see in the movies coming up. If you think there's anything else that applies based on the new drops or rumors or story arc kind of stuff going on with Deadpool Wolverine, and we hit the Cassandra Nova, if there's another character in there we think we should be looking at a little closer, that would be fun.
Well, there is a certain daughter of Wolverine is probably going to be in that movie, and me and Drew talked about reading a certain Tom Taylor run from that character, so that would be one thing. I've never read it, so I definitely want to.
I've never read it. Let's do it.
I'll read that every day.
Yeah, I read one of them before. It's pretty good.
Something modern, Tom Taylor, 6 issues. Yeah, I'll read that. No problem.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I don't want to turn this into the X-Men show, but I think so far 2024 has been the year of X-Men so far.
Right?
In like comics.
We're doing a lot of Grant Morrison too, so
yeah, that's true. So if anyone has any other ideas or tired of X-Men, let us know, and we will.
Now that we have live chats on these shows, and maybe throw some suggestions in the comments. Maybe we'll read something you guys want us to read.
That's why I wasn't turning the video off. I was waiting for maybe these 6 recurring watchers to throw a suggestion in the chat while we hot dog and grandstand until the end. But yeah, I mean, we could always switch it up. Like I don't know. I could just sit here and throw out ideas all day, and I don't want to do that. But I guess why anyone's thinking in the chat, we can start our final goodbyes here. So let me get the gimmicks up. All right. Jason, where can people find you?
You guys can find me right here on Seawater 19 on Modern Men. I wanted to give a plug to my work, $20 Spin. We recently released the new album from Terminal Nation. This is the Decibel magazine exclusive. It's like orange and orange.
Sunburst.
Wow. Yeah, it's a sunburst, orange and orange. I don't have the art pressing on me right now, but we have I think 3 or 4 different colors ourselves. Great Adam Burke art on there.
Wow,
I saw that when I was playing Diablo.
Great hardcore band.
Cool. All right, what about you, JB? What do you got going on?
You can find me on Thursday nights over at the Lords of the Long Box YouTube channel. We do the Shakers List, otherwise known as the Ofer List, which is the most odd, just one-off crazy sales that happened within the last week. And beyond that, I occasionally pop up on Whatnot, and you can always reach out to me on Instagram if you want to get a hold of me. Thanks for having me. As always, don't forget, we had a good time.
All right. What about you, Drew?
Oh, look, you can't find me unless you're checking behind you while you're lurking through long boxes. I am the John Cena of the now defunct Comic Corps.
Our truth's favorite.
overbooked, underdelivered. You know, that's the way I do it over here. No, you know.
Well, I guess Peacemaker 2 season 2 started filming today as well.
Ooh,
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get more Peacemaker.
Yeah, that's a good show.
It's a comic series too.
I'm around. So you know, check me out.
All right, and then you can find me on this channel, CWoodard19. I'm gonna try to put up probably a live stream. Either I might actually do a Tuesday night live stream. Who knows? I actually have Tuesday off. I might wait till Wednesday though, because I was making the thumbnail for this episode in like the 2 seconds that I threw that together. I bought a book that I've been looking for a very long time, and I might wait for that to ship and then show that on Wednesday. So either Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to show some books and talk about them. And then Instagram, X/Twitter, at CWoodard19. You can follow me on there as well. Scott Evans says he's around too. So follow Scott Evans. He's in the chat. Follow each other in the chat. Follow Chris Barrett. Follow Fish Tropic for your fish tanking needs. Follow Howler Mouse. He has some great live streams. If it rains in his neck of the woods on the weekend and he does a live stream, definitely try to catch that. Follow Double S Collects, man. Come on. I mean, it's Double S. You got to follow that guy. And then we had, who else did I miss? We had Perry. Everybody, I mean, come on. Like, if you have a YouTube subscription, you probably have been forced to follow Perry at this point,
what's
right?
up with the hands? He's normally lurking with the eyeballs. I mean, he's just like blindly groping us.
He's going jazz hands now.
No, I think he was just following suit with Christina Payne, who had one pink hand earlier. So follow Christina Payne as well. She's an excellent moderator for The Great Legend. So follow everybody who popped in the chat today. And until, I guess I'll do my gimmick sign out. Until next time, to stand.